Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of No Such Thing as a Fish, where we were joined by a special guest, and that was Helen Scales. Now, if you don't know Helen, she is a marine biologist, a writer, a broadcaster. We've known her for many, many years. She's so funny, so interesting. She loves her subject so much. Her books are absolutely great. The first one that she wrote was called Spirals in Time. I think that was the first one, which was all about shells and the history of shells. And her most recent one is called What the Wild Sea Can Be. And it is basically a look at the future of the oceans, which you might think is quite negative because of all the news stories that are going around. But Helen, as is her wont, is very positive about what the future might be and how we can save the world. If you'd like to get her books, obviously they're available from all the usual places. But if you go to helenscales.com, you can visit her shop, which is related to the online booksellers bookshop. And if you go there, then all her commissions will go to the charity Sea Changers, so you'll help save the sea as well as learning about the sea. There's also details on her website about a couple of shows she's doing to promote the book, so make sure you have a look at that if you like what you hear in this episode, and I know that you will. One more thing to say, you know we have a tour coming up. There is still tickets for most of the UK dates and a couple of the Australia dates left for that, so do get your tickets ASAP. And the people of Sydney and London, do go back to nosuchthingasafish.com/live because there are details of new dates on there. So if you missed out on tickets to Sydney or London, then fear not, because we have put some more dates on. Okay, that's it. That's all I have to say this week. So really, all there is left to say is on with the podcast. So let's say it. On with the podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of No Such Thing as a Fish, a weekly podcast coming to you from the QI offices in Holborn. My name is Anna Dushinsky and I'm sitting here with Andrew Hunter-Murray, James Harkin and extra special guest today, Helen Scales. And we have gathered around our microphones with our 4 favourite facts from the last 7 days. So, in no particular order, here we go. Starting with Helen.
My fact is you can play peekaboo with an octopus.
Wow. Cool. That sounds like fun.
I think it was peekaboo. That's what I was doing.
Because you've done this.
Yeah,
this is personal fact.
Exactly. So
How did peekaboo work? Because the game is quite loose rules-wise.
I think so, yeah. I mean, maybe it was hide and seek. No, I think it was peekaboo. So basically, I was coming back from a free dive or a snorkel, if I want to make it sound not as cool, but I'll say free dive because that does sound cooler. And I was literally just a couple of feet from the beach and the water was like knee-high. And I looked down, I was floating, and I looked down and there was an octopus behind a rock. And I was like, awesome, because I love octopuses and I see them occasionally, but it's definitely a special thing to see.
Where were you in the world?
Oh, sorry. I was in Brittany, in France.
Very nice.
Yes. So there was this octopus and I was like, awesome, okay, fantastic. And then generally when I see exciting animals like that, you have to be like, just looking as much as possible, because any second now it's going to just fuck off, right? And you're left with like, oh, that was a lovely encounter, but it lasted like seconds. But this one didn't move, and I was just hanging out with it.
And how big are we talking?
I mean, in my mind, it was like maybe a small melon-sized, I think, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so first off, I did the My Octopus Teacher touching thing. Have you seen My Octopus Teacher? The Netflix that documentary? There's a bit basically where if you put your hand out, an octopus will reach out and touch you with its
So it's like God and Adam in the Michelangelo.
Exactly.
God is an octopus.
Yeah, because I know they do that. They basically they're tasting you to see what you are, because they're suckers. They're really sensitive and they can have you like taste the chemicals and stuff. So I put my hand out and it did. It's like put its little arm out and it's tiny and thin at the end, and it was like, and it touched me and I was like, oh, that was amazing. And then so we did that and I was like, okay, so what else can I do with this octopus, you know, while it's got my...
Kick it up a notch,
So I was like, well, what if I just hide from it? Maybe it will try and come and find me.
Wow.
And so I moved out of its line of sight so that it couldn't see me. And it just like peered around the rock. You know, it was definitely like, where have you gone? You're over there. And I'm like, no, you go. But I just really had this sense of something a bit more intelligent, and it's thinking about you and it's interacting with you. And it was just really a really cool moment.
So
really
it didn't
was.
then hide from you or anything like that?
No, it didn't hide from me. Then I think at that point I was like, I'm getting really cold. I need to get out. Can you do something a bit more interesting than just sit there? And so I think I was like, I'm going to get a bit closer. And at that point it was like, no. Okay. And it went off and changed. You know, you hear about how octopuses change colour and texture and stuff. And it really did. It had been like pale and smooth. And then instantly it turned like really angry red and very bumpy. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
Are the bumps real?
Yeah. So their skin...
It's not just that it looks bumpy.
Yeah. So their skin has like loads of little muscles and they can pull up and make little like warts and little bumps, and then they can flatten themselves out.
Amazing.
And change
That's
the
so
colour
cool.
is also muscles too. They have these like bubbles of pigment which can open and close, and they can change their colour. It's like pixels basically.
I never knew that's how they change their colour. I just sort of assumed that they... I didn't assume anything. I just thought they
You
did
didn't
it.
really think about it,
Yeah,
did
yeah.
you? No, because you wouldn't really.
But they
Just
Until you
like the
see
way
it.
that you blush, maybe they might just change colour.
They have
We
layers
can't
in their
blush lots of
skin.
colours. If only we could blush loads of different colours. Like I could blush blue if I was
Exactly.
sad.
On
command.
Or-
That
yeah.
would be like a really cool thing to do with like GM, right? Just to like give ourselves chromatophores, like that's what they're
Yes.
called in octopuses.
That would be good.
Some
Be
are
like
blue,
it'd
red,
be
and
easier
green.
for those, you know, those parties where you have to go in a colour. Like if you're available, you wear green.
Oh, your swingers parties.
there you go. Yeah.
It's not always easy to find an amber shirt.
They definitely do seem to be animals where you can have a bit of a relationship.
I
though.
think so. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say I made friends with it, but I just felt like for a moment we had a bit of a play, and that was cool. I mean, I haven't ever played with a crab, for instance. That's never really worked out, or a fish.
You've tried then.
Yeah, the crabs just don't go for the peekaboo. They really
Well,
don't.
sometimes though octopuses don't want to befriend. Like they seem to have such personalities that they're discerning about who they like. There was a person who worked in a New England aquarium who. One of the octopuses there just completely took against him and used to squirt him in the room whenever he walked in, just absolutely hated him. And then I think he left and did a degree or something, left university, and he came back and immediately the octopus was like, not Barry again, and went for him again.
Yeah, they are a bit moody like
Yeah.
that. I've heard stories about octopuses being given food they don't like and just being like, this, and they hold it up to the person and go like, see what I'm going to do with this? And they swim across to the other side of the tank and stuff it in the drain and be like, no,
Wow.
that's where that's going.
Like a toddler.
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, I imagine there are those sorts of studies of like intelligence that are about that kind of level of.
I reckon, although toddlers
So-
can't play hide and seek.
Can they not?
No.
Oh, because they just think you're not there when you close your eyes.
They did a study where they gave a toddler a doll and they put a blindfold on the doll and the toddler thought that they couldn't see it.
Wait, they thought that the doll couldn't see the toddler.
Yeah.
But the doll
And they
can't
thought
see the toddler either
they
way.
thought that the toddler thought the doll had gone invisible.
The doll had gone invisible because
They don't think that. Because I feel like I've heard that kind of thing. And obviously the study was done. But I've heard that kind of thing where like they think if you cover your eyes and you've gone. But when you do it with kids, they don't think you've
I
disappeared.
literally did it yesterday and it
Did
worked.
you?
Yeah.
With your kid? What? So they just think, but they can see your body.
I said to her, look at me. That took a while. Because she doesn't really do what I tell her. But then eventually she looked at me and I covered my eyes and I said, can you see me? And she said, no.
Does that mean that she thinks she can't see you though, or that she thinks the thing to say in this game is no?
Well,
Just
because
it feels
the-
like if you vanished, then children would be like, "What the hell?"
But
just
the other
happened?"
evidence is that
yeah.
if you play hide and seek with a child, if they cover their eyes, they think you can't
Yeah.
see them. Like
That's just in the middle of the
really-
room, eyes closed.
Yeah.
I'm hiding. It's
great.
Yeah.
And the really
Easy.
interesting thing is it works for voices as well, apparently. Although I tried this with my daughter and it didn't work. But apparently there was a study where experimenters put their hands over their ears and said to the child, can you hear me? And the child said, no, I can't hear you. Now, I did try this and it didn't work with my daughter. I'm not sure if that means she's too smart or not smart enough.
But if you put on a different voice, will she think that, for example, Bruce Forsyth is in the room? Is that-
And she's like, nice to see you.
I can't see you. Octopuses, I think, have they been reclassed in Britain in terms of their intelligence? Because they're so clever that the government has now classed them along with vertebrates. Like, they're way cleverer than lots of vertebrates. And they're classed as sentient beings.
That's
in the
right,
animal welfare.
yeah.
That's good news.
It is
isn't
good news. It means, well, hopefully it means now we have to be nicer to them.
Because there are all sorts of discussions about, should we farm them? And it's like, should we farm these really intelligent, amazing, weird creatures?
that don't like living together and are generally cannibalistic and, all sorts of stuff like that.
You don't want a farm like where all the cows are eating each other.
Well, exactly. You don't want just one great big octopus left at the end. I mean, that's really not going to be much use.
Chop it up and distribute it equally.
You might get the same number of steaks from one enormous cow that's eaten all the
Precisely.
other cows.
And it's easier to herd, isn't it? If you just got one.
You need a big dog. Very big dog. It's tragic. They can't write, but they do produce ink.
Oh, that is tragic.
Is that in the Alanis Morissette song?
Ooh.
Is it wasps or bees that can make paper?
Yeah,
There's
wasps, paper
wasps can make paper.
If they could get together,
Never the twain.
give
that's
a wasp a
tragic.
snorkel and imagine what
Oh my
havoc the
gosh.
two species could wreak.
Was it Alanis Morissette? Ironic.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they
God.
weren't very ironic.
No.
Most of the things
Was
she
the
said were
ironic
really
thing.
not very ironic.
There was someone else, right? Avril Lavigne.
No, it was.
No,
It was.
you're
No, it
thinking
wasn't
of
Alanis
Skater
Morissette.
Boy.
Yeah, I confused the two the other day in a social situation, and I haven't had the end of it yet. Anyway,
He was a wasp. She was an octopus. Can I make it any more obvious?
They're very strong octopuses as well. Every sucker is so powerful, isn't it? And I think I worked out. So if a sucker touches an object, it like changes shape to form this seal around it. And I realised that the common octopus, if it's hanging off the ceiling, the four of us. And I've done some vague weight estimates. And I think it wouldn't be true
Okay.
if Dan was here, but I think the four of us
That is no heavier than I am, for sure.
No, right, but James, who does Dan have to be heavier than for this to work with the four of us, but not if Dan was here?
No, I do see that. I
There
do
you
see
go.
it. But it did just sound like a slam on Dan's weight.
head.
Yeah.
Look, I think we can safely say that Helen is a few inches shorter than Dan Schreiber. They're both in great shape, but Dan probably weighs a few pounds more.
Once I was in the ITV studios on the South Bank, and there was a load of people in the lift, and I walked into the lift, and it went beep, 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 please leave the lift, because I was the person who put it over the level, and I felt awful, like it was a really low moment in my life. But imagine that, if all your mates are hanging off an octopus, and you're the one
Yeah.
that pulls him down.
And they're just like, no, that's it. I'm letting go. Do you know what happens if you cut the arm off an octopus?
Ooh.
So this is, if you wanted to eat it.
Does it
So,
live?
yeah. So fishermen will like chop the arms off and stick them in the bucket and they try to climb out basically. So octopus have like 500 million neurons, but half of them are in their arms. So they have a very different kind of nerve system to us. We don't have it's not all in their brain. So the question is like, do they think for themselves, these arms? Are they like actually able to make their own decisions? But what we think they're doing is that their kind of response is to pass food towards the mouth. So if a bit of food goes to the end of the arm, the suckers are like passing it to the next one and to the next one. And actually that same motion, if you've chopped an arm off in a bucket, is climb out of the bucket. Do you see what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So they're just trying to pass.
They're just
pass
like, this
food
is
to
a
the
thing we do. So it's
Yeah.
there's not necessarily any thought in it, but they will basically walk off.
Oh,
Yeah.
No.
The other thing, if you cut the very tip of an arm, it'll still respond to like nasty chemicals. So people who are like doing science and they'll take just a little bit of tissue off and then you try and put the little tip of the arm into a pot of alcohol and it goes, oh no, ow.
Oh, are we calling alcohol a nasty chemical?
Oh, sorry. Well, I
be
guess
careful
very,
about casting
very high
aspersions.
concentration.
mean
The sort of
100
alcohol
you
used to
mean
preserve the tip of an
100%.
octopus's arm.
100% scientific
all
stuff. Unfortunately for you,
Yeah.
Helen, that's what Anna likes to do.
My limbs have cut off, go towards the glass of pure alcohol.
Just a thumbs up from Anna's removed hand.
you don't eat octopuses, right?
No, I don't.
No. Do you eat other fish? Sometimes.
And not much
really.
anymore. I did for a long time. I gave up eating meat years and years ago, and then I kind of kept on eating sustainably caught fish.
But definitely octopuses, you wouldn't.
No, not
because
since meeting one. I definitely not since playing peekaboo with one. I couldn't.
Something else that needs to avoid eating octopuses is the dolphin. Although, I mean, they do like to sometimes. And octopuses are really good food for other sea animals because I guess they're very meaty. But they're quite dangerous to swallow. And I think when dolphins do eat octopuses, they have to really work hard on cutting up their food to tear them to shreds. Because I think they found a dead dolphin recently in the last couple of years, which had an octopus in its mouth. And you can see its tentacles like flopping out of its mouth.
So if I'm a dolphin and I have an octopus and it sort of clings onto the inside of my throat
Yeah.
as it's going down because I haven't chewed it properly.
Yeah.
Does it pull me inside out? Is what I'm trying to say. I end up coming into work the next
Why
day
would
saying,
it do
I think
that?
I had a dodgy octopus last night. Because it's attached to the inside of the tube that is me.
Yes, it
And
has
it's
done
gone,
that.
And it's gone all the way through.
I don't think the dolphin was inside out when they
Okay.
found it. I'm afraid that would be even more grotesque than the truth, which is, like you say, it suckers onto their esophagus until
Yeah.
it chokes them to death, which is quite
Okay.
clever.
Yeah.
Could they be trained? I mean, the CIA are always training dolphins and things,
Good
aren't
point.
Yeah.
Are you thinking, Andy, that we can defeat the CIA for whatever reason we might want to by sending an army of octopuses to turn their dolphins inside out?
they? Oh, yeah. That'll send a strong message, won't it? Britain is back on the global stage. We've inverted every dolphin the CIA has ever trained. Stop the podcast.
Stop the podcast!
Hi, everybody. Just wanted to let you know that this week's fish is sponsored by Squarespace.
Absolutely. Squarespace. If you don't know what the internet is, then why are you even how are you even listening? How are you even alive? If you don't know what a website is, how are you even alive? But you might not know how to make a website, and that is where Squarespace comes in very, very handy.
That's true. And Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for you to start out making websites, managing your brand if you're growing a company, you wanted to engage with your audience, sell products, all available via Squarespace. They're brilliant. It makes it so easy.
There's all sorts of brilliant features with Squarespace. They allow you to sell your content with flexible payments. They allow you to upload video content. They allow you to invoice your clients really, really easily. It's just really the all-in-one super easy place to make your website. And if you do want to make a website, then why not right now go to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/fish and you'll save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
That is right. Go to squarespace.com/fish and you will save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using that offer code FISH. Get involved. Get a website. For heaven's sake.
On with the podcast.
On with the show.
Okay, it's time for fact number 2, and that is my fact. My fact this week is that during winter, the ground is too cold for male emperor penguins' feet, so they spend 2 months leaning back and balancing on their heels.
That's great.
That's so painful and uncomfortable.
They sound like kind of relaxed dads. You know, they're leaning back.
They've got their
yeah.
tail, like they prop back.
Yeah,
they
it's-
lean back on the little sort of.
Yes.
It's like a hunting stick, I guess. Is that what it? You know, those things you can like
Yeah, shooting stick.
shooting stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What, like one of those seats that an old
Yeah.
lady sits on the beach?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm guessing you're very familiar with this, and we should just say why they have to do this.
Because it's cold.
Because it's cold.
Really cold.
It's
really, really cold.
It's freezing. They're in Antarctica. It's like -40 Celsius. And the female essentially lays her egg, I think that's right, and it's in the middle of winter because they need to start incubating the egg so that it's born in nice springtime when there's lots of food. So middle of winter, coldest possible time, the females laid the egg, plopped it in front of the male, disappeared for a couple of months. And they have this incredible pouch that they plop over the egg, and the egg balances on his feet. But then if his feet are flat on the ground, then they just get super, super cold. And so, as you say, he leans back and like a tripod balances on his tail
It's
for 2
amazing.
months.
I'd vaguely seen that they did this. I had no idea about the details and how difficult it is. The dads can only eat snow for those months.
They
Basically,
get pretty skinny, don't they, by the
They
end?
do.
they lose half their weight sometimes, or 40%. And the
Yeah.
dads basically had an enormous mega barbecue the summer before. All the dads hang out. They put on lots and lots of weight because they know they're going to need it. They use it all up.
Oh,
It's
that's
just-
interesting.
Shrink,
So
yeah.
when am I going to lose this weight that I thought I'm after being a dad?
So you need to head on down south and
Okay, yeah.
spend quite a bit of time on the sea ice.
They just lose no heat. Scientists did the sort of, those heat map body things that you do. You see where someone's losing heat. And I think they found that the only places they're losing heat are through their eyes.
Really?
In Dune, the film Dune, and the book Dune, they've got those still suits which allow them to lose zero moisture.
Yeah, very good.
No.
They're basically in the desert. We're on the planet Arrakis, and never mind. Anyway.
We get the idea.
Yeah.
From
But they've got these
sentence.
suits, which means they lose no moisture. And the penguins, emperor penguins, are basically that bodily. They just can do it and not lose heat. It's
Yeah, they
stunning.
get so hot. Like, they do that huddling thing, the males, when there's a blizzard and they all cuddle together. They can be like so hot they have to break apart and be like, oh, God, and they just sit steaming. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
that
doesn't get
sounds
too
like
hot.
more. It sounds more of a thing, which you wouldn't think
Yeah.
because you see them in documentaries and you feel so sorry for how cold they must be. But actually, it seems like overheating is more of a
Actually,
problem.
potentially more a problem, yeah.
And I always thought that those big huddles, where hundreds of them, as you say, clump together, don't they? And they rotate who's on the inside. I always thought they lasted for ages. That was kind of how they stood. But apparently, it's about 50 minutes each one lasts.
So, and it's
before
really
they
when it's
break
like,
away.
when a blizzard blows through and it's
Yeah.
really cold.
So do you think they don't feel cold then?
I think they would if they got cold. It just sounds like that they don't.
Their threshold is just way lower than humans, so I think it's down to minus 10 Celsius. They're basically comfortable.
Well, that's
Okay.
actually that's the same as someone from Newcastle, I think.
That's why the black and white is the emblem. They're still a bit chilly then, I guess. If minus 10 they're comfortable, minus 40 they're probably like...
That's when they're like, let's all,
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
together
Do
a
they
bit.
have human conceptions of discomfort in the way that we do? I don't know.
Well, that comes back to the whole sentient thing, That's
Yeah.
like kind of the big thing of that. It's like, are they suffering?
Is the first penguin dad to suggest a huddle looked on as a bit of a wuss?
Yeah.
Or is everyone secretly hoping someone's going to suggest it, but no one wants to be the first one?
Oh, I'm not going to hug you. Touch me, mate.
One thing I like about the whole penguin feather thing is, have you seen kind of on Blue Planet or whatever it was of the emperor penguins whooshing up underwater and jumping out they do this kind of leaps, right? They basically, that's like, need to get out of the water because there's probably something coming to eat me, but my little legs aren't going to be very good at clambering off onto the ice. So they swim up from deep down, and it's skin that's their feathers. So basically, as they go down, they hold their contour feathers, the outside ones, in place. They lock them in place so that the air is trapped. And then as they're coming up, they basically let that air out, and it all comes fizzing out of the little under fuzzy bits.
Cool.
And forms a stream of bubbles, and it's called air lubrication, and it basically reduces the friction against the water, and so they go a bit faster, and they go popping out of the water at the
That's
top,
so cool.
and then they land on the ice, and they've got a nice little tummy. Their fronts are covered with more feathers, so when they land, it's a nice cushion.
That is so cool.
Isn't that
They're
really
like Iron
cool?
Man. They've
It's
just
so
got
cool.
tricks for days.
Yeah.
They're a real risk of climate change, aren't they?
Yeah,
Because,
sadly,
they
yes.
live on sea ice, and if sea ice melts,
That's specifically this bit with the males and the chick rearing is on the sea ice.
and it's all on the outside, isn't it? Of
Yeah,
the Antarctic sea ice, because
exactly.
they need access to the sea. If the ice melts, basically, then that means like lots of colonies have had complete breeding failures where no chicks survive to the next year, and
It's happened 2 years in a row now. It's really
bad. Yeah. And I think the idea is that if the world keeps to 1.5 degrees of warming, then the numbers will hold up much better than
Yes.
if it goes far beyond that. So that
yeah,
that is
no,
the
it
thing
definitely matters. Like every
Yeah.
degree we can like avoid of heating, like the better the emperor penguins will do. And like the cool thing I love about it as well is how we study numbers of penguins is from satellites. There's like once a week a satellite passes over Antarctica and takes photos, and you can only do that during the summer because it's dark. During the winter, obviously, and you can't see anything. But in the summer months, they pass over and take photos, and then you can count the penguins and their poo, basically. The guano stains the ice and you can see where they are. So that's how you figure out how many there are. And so basically, the end of the winter, when the sun comes up again, it's like, fingers crossed, everybody. Like, how many are still there? Like, how many of these...
You're looking for a huge poo on the ice. It's a
Basically,
remarkable
yeah.
poo,
And then
you know?
that's when we see. So basically this year, we won't know till, because it's just getting dark now.
Right.
We won't know till like September, October, how this year's clutch of
Right.
penguins has
I
done.
wonder, do they take into account the level of poo? By which I mean,
Oh.
like, let's say your penguins are not eating very well for whatever reason, they might poo less. And I wonder if when they look at it, they can
To
take
be
that
honest,
into
yeah, I don't know whether they do the poo for individual numbers or whether they're just like, here's a colony
I
that's
see.
generally there. And then you zoom in and you can
area.
actually see like a little shadow. That's how good the satellites are. You can see, and they're so tall that you can see a penguin's shadow in the satellite images and therefore count each individual.
Yeah, and
So
actually, I
cool.
think one really interesting thing is you can tell how many individuals there are in one of these huddles by knowing the size of the huddle and the
Right.
temperature outside.
Oh,
because
yes,
they're
how close
really
they are.
mathematically precise. They
really
go into
cool.
like hexagons. You know how hexagons are the best way at packing things.
Right.
If you kind of take a big pile of penguins, you know how much they're huddling because you know how cold it is, and you just put a load of hexagons on that grid. That's how many penguins there are.
Oh, what you mean? If it's colder, they'll go closer. They'll suddenly be 10 to a meter instead of.
I don't know
8
whether to be more impressed by scientists or penguins in that. As in, working that out is unbelievable. Them working it out as penguins is unbelievable. I'm just very impressed by everyone.
They're really
know.
cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part of Scott's expedition was about penguin eggs, collecting penguin eggs.
So crazy.
It's
Scott of the Antarctic.
Scott of the
Yeah,
Antarctic,
yeah.
that one. So 1910 to 1913, his Terra Nova expedition. A lesser known part of it, in I think 1911,
It's 11, yeah.
was where 3 of them, I think it was sort of the brainchild, or the person who was most passionate about it was Edward Wilson, who was Scott's second in command. And then there was this other chap called Apsley Cherry Garrard. But they were there to go and collect emperor penguin eggs, weren't they? Because they believed it was going to be really evolutionarily
Yes,
important.
that's right. They
a
thought,
link between...
Yeah, they thought they were the oldest birds, and that there was this theory of recapitulation, which totally fell out of favour, but the idea that an embryo retraces its evolutionary heritage of its ancestors. So it would kind of basically start off in its egg as a little reptile and then turn into a bird as it was growing. And so it kind of totally comes back to this whole like crazy winters and the males with the eggs on their feet, because the only way to get an egg with an embryo in it is to go in the middle of winter.
Absolutely.
To pick them up,
The
yeah.
hardest possible. And not only is it freezing cold, of course, pitch dark.
Dark.
The
And you've
whole
got
They
to-
time.
kept falling down like holes in the ice. It was ridiculous.
But then surely you've also got to fight an angry dad.
It's not in its fighting weight, though, is it, at that stage?
Exactly. So the 3 of them went, and then the 3 survived. But Cherry Gerard got back, and he was so ill from this expedition that he didn't go on the bit to the South Pole, which is where Bowers and Wilson died with Scott.
Right.
But they did get the penguin eggs. But I mean, it sounds extraordinary. So Cherry's teeth chattered so violently with the cold that they shattered, apparently.
Do you know how they kept warm as well?
How?
By burning penguins.
That's dark.
guys.
That's very dark.
Hey, you do what you can.
I thought you were going to say they had a lovely hug and a cuddle together, and that was...
Oh, I'm not hugging you. I'm going to burn this penguin.
I mean, that was when they went to the colony. They grabbed a whole bunch of eggs and they took some adult males.
I know, like,
and
skua-
they burnt them because they're really oily. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, skuas, they burn quite well, don't they? Like,
Oh, do
they
they?
use those as lamps in
Oh, they
Scotland
stick
and stuff.
they stick a wick up there.
But yeah.
I mean, how strong are your ethical principles when you are near the South Pole and suddenly you realise
In the
it's
name.
death or penguin burning?
It was a couple of penguins.
It's only a couple. And it took him 45 minutes each night to chip into his frozen sleeping bag.
Oh, no. They probably burnt, like, the novels that they brought with them and the finish before they burnt the penguins.
Yeah.
I imagine
Probably.
so, yeah.
I mean, not the Dickens, because you need to keep hold of the best ones.
Sorry, it took 45 minutes to chip into his sleeping bag.
Each night it would be a
Each
block of
night?
ice, and he said 45 minutes.
And all I've got is one of these pieces of my own tooth to chip away with.
Oh, my God.
That sounds...
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to bed. You go to bed early. Yeah.
Got the old sleeping bag chipping to do. And there was also a thing where they had 3 sleds, I think, but they could only pull one at a time. So for every sort of mile they travelled, they had to do 3
Oh my
back and
God.
forth.
Oh, no, God. And they couldn't leave the chicken on the sled
No,
at the same
no.
time as the grain.
So we've got a penguin, an octopus, and a dolphin.
Okay, it is time for fact number 3, and that is Andy.
My fact is that when Queen Elizabeth II got married, the people of Leamington Spa clubbed together and bought her a washing machine.
Oh.
Yeah,
That's nice.
it's very nice.
Clubbed together? How expensive was the washing machine, or how little did each individual in Leamington Spa contribute?
Wow.
Wow.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's less than 1 penny each, isn't it? Once you've taken everyone.
I'm sure they were more expensive in 1947, I guess.
Yeah.
It was also a time famously of massive deprivation
Sure.
after the war.
Yeah,
Like, bread
they-
was rationed at this point.
They all
so
used their ration cards to buy her a washing machine.
Did she have one already?
unclear. I think out of diplomacy, she was a famously diplomatic woman. She would never have said, I actually
No.
have 16 washing machines in my different houses everywhere. So she was Princess Elizabeth at the time because she wasn't yet queen. That's how it works. And 1947, post-war, really poor time. So lots of gifts were food, I mean, people,
Wow.
and gifts from around the world. She got given lots of dresses, most of which she gave away to other girls getting married around her age around the same time. You know, so
That's cool.
yeah, the list of wedding presents, this is so weird, was published as a book, and you can buy it today. And I have ordered it, and it hasn't been delivered yet.
Oh.
So tune in next week when I'll be doing the same fact again. Wow. Yeah, but it's like they were just weird presents, like 500 cases of tinned pineapple.
Can you get through that
Yeah.
much pineapple in your life?
I don't think I could.
No, that's the
me
governor
neither.
of Queensland sent that.
I haven't had one tin this year.
Haven't you?
No.
Gosh.
Maybe after this.
Weirdly, I think I had my first tin pineapple of the year yesterday.
That is a coincidence.
Wow.
Isn't it?
That bizarre. Yes, it was part of a Penang curry.
Lovely.
People
Yeah.
sent her stockings, which I find quite a personal thing to send someone. And she got over 100 pairs, I think, hundreds of pairs of nylon stockings, which were a high value item. Nylon was a newly invented thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
What would the equivalent be to Bitcoin, probably?
The people of Leamington Spa chipped together to get you one Dogecoin. Royal wedding gifts are often quite weird, aren't they?
yeah.
Grace Kelly, friend of the podcast.
Oh, yeah?
She got a yacht.
That's
From-
a nice gift.
Aristotle
yeah.
Onassis.
Yes, please.
Yeah, which village club together to buy
Yeah, that's better than washing machine, isn't it?
The interesting thing about that is it was a repurposed ship. It was a yacht. And then it got turned into a ship for the war and was used at Dunkirk to help evacuate soldiers. And then after the war, Onassis bought it again and turned it back into a yacht and then gave it to Grace Kelly as a wedding gift.
That's sort of recycling, sort of.
Sorry, which bin does this yacht go in?
Oh, that's great. That's much better than the one I felt. Prince Charles and Diana, when they got married, a council in Somerset sent 1 ton of peat.
Oh,
Because he's a farmer, and he's not a farmer, is he? But he owns
Yeah.
lots of farmers.
Yeah, but you know, that was a huge faux pas, really.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
He was
exactly.
too
sending excrement to a wedding is that so far?
Oh, peat isn't
not
excrement.
no.
I
they-
need to do some basic lessons.
But it is.
okay.
It was Sedgemoor District Council. They sent him a ton of peat, and this was exactly about the time that Charles was banning peat because he is very environmentally aware and has been for a very long time. And in the 80s, he banned peat use on all of his farms because it's a big biodiversity area.
pea-free
Now it's
compost,
huge.
all of that.
Yeah.
Also, it sequesters a lot of carbon, doesn't it? So
yep.
Yes, although I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think he
yeah.
knew that at the time, but he was very, he
yeah.
predicted. So Sedgemoor, you screwed up, and that's
One nice wedding gift I found is something that people get in Japan called the Venus flower basket.
Oh, yes.
it?
I know this one,
Go
yeah.
on, tell us what it is.
So it's a deep sea sponge. It's a glass sponge, so they're made out of kind of silica, basically. They look like a very ornate stocking, so a bit sort of like a woven knitted stocking. And then there are these shrimp that live inside them, and they get inside them when they're larvae, so they can sort of go through the holes of this glassy sponge thing. And then they get trapped. And so basically you have a male and a female that are trapped inside this sponge and can't get out.
And that's like a marriage.
Exactly. And they send their babies off into the world through the holes of their sponge, but they stay their entire life inside the
But
sponge.
yeah, it is that. It's because like the male and the female stay together the rest of their lives, isn't
it's
it?
a claustrophobic concept of marriage, isn't it?
Lovely.
What I
Gorgeous.
also found is like, because it's like this glass sponge is like in a framework, isn't it? It's like a lattice.
Yes.
And they found that the currents go into it and they create like a little vortex. And it means that when the male and the female release their sperm and eggs, it's the perfect vortex to make them all sort of mix together.
Ah, cool.
So that's quite romantic as well, isn't it?
It is. It's lovely. I've heard as well that they designed the gherkin in London around
skyscraper?
the skyscraper,
Is that right?
around the sort of shape of a sponge as well. And it was like, rather than water and other things circulating around it, it's like it's for air conditioning and it pulls air in and it goes up the building.
Do not release sperm around the gherkin if you're looking for love.
See what happens.
Just see- the building security and the cleaning team will both be dispatched.
That's so interesting.
Wow, that's very cool.
No.
Yeah.
We can do a washing machine thing or two.
Washing machines.
Yeah, they're bad.
Are they?
Yeah, washing machines are bad. Synthetic clothes washing accounts for 35% of primary microplastics found in the environment.
Wow, that's high.
And they're trying to come up with a law where all new washing machines have to have a filter in them. And it's already the law in France, I think, but at the moment it's not the law in the UK, and it needs to be the law in the UK.
And does that stop the microplastics getting out and into the water system?
That's a filter, yeah.
And when you say synthetic fabrics, I've got
That T-shirt you're wearing, it's cotton, I guess.
I think it is.
No,
yeah,
I
yeah.
think you're talking more like fleeces and
Yeah, like polyester. And nylon.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Polyester fleeces are particularly bad because they just
Yeah.
shed loads of fibres.
Why would you ever wash a fleece?
Yeah, good point.
Don't.
Just next time don't.
I'm the school of like, if it's an outer layer, you never wash it.
no.
Unless you fall in a swamp.
Oh yeah, and if you're wearing a fleece, you might be.
What if a bird
Yeah.
poos on you?
Oh, yeah. Just wipe it.
Wait till it's dry and then a stiff hog's back bristle brush.
Yeah, obviously.
Do you know that the first fleeces were called synthetic chinchillas?
No, stop it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
When was that?
When?
Yeah, roughly.
20th century.
Get away.
20th century, yeah.
Before that, people were wearing chinchilla
real
fleece.
Real ones.
I
Yeah.
think chinchilla was a name of a fabric that was kind of similar to what a chinchilla was, but it was made of cotton, but it was called chinchilla. And then this
funny.
was synthetic chinchilla. I
Synthetic
think
chinchilla.
that's
That's
right.
amazing.
Ironic, because actually they're sort of chin warmers, aren't they?
That's very right. Yeah.
Gosh.
God. Good grief.
Can I tell you a washing machine fact?
Yeah.
Sure.
This is good. So you know the Samsung jingle.
The Samsung jingle. No.
That's not one of the famous ones.
When your washing machine finishes, it plays a little tune. And if you've got
Samsung.
the Samsung, yeah.
No, I don't know
No,
it.
there's a tune. Well, lots of
My
washing
washing
machines.
machine just goes beep, beep, beep when it's finished.
Well,
Does
you're
it go
missing out.
dun, 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 or something like
Nope.
that?
No. That's an announcement on the underground you're thinking
Yeah,
of.
yeah. It's
I
the one
installed the wrong thing in my kitchen.
It's the one that goes dum 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 dum.
Really?
Really?
I don't
And
know
it's
it.
really long, right? So this is so mad. It was composed in 1817, the Samsung washing machine jingle.
For this. With
For
this in
this.
mind.
It's Franz Schubert.
Wow.
I know. And it's a song. It's called The Trout. So there's an aquatic
Oh,
theme
okay.
element. And it's based on a poem, confusingly, a German writer called Schubart.
Wow.
And it's about a trout that gets caught by a fisherman, and it's a warning to young women to stay away from men.
Well, there you are.
Yeah, and
Yes.
this is the tune that is in every Samsung washing machine. It's a little sort of ceremonial ditty that plays at the end of. And I have one of those washing machines. I hear that tune a couple of times a week.
And
That's
your
really interesting.
wife leaves the house. What a multi-layered fact. There are so
Yeah.
many bits to
Yeah.
grasp
Well,
there.
I mean, to start off with, I didn't know Samsung made washing machines. I thought they made TVs.
Right, that's the foothills of this fact.
Yeah.
Schubert and Schubart. I want to know about that comedy double act.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question about your washing machines?
Yeah.
How much washing powder do you tend to put in?
I just put one of those, those Tide Pod things that Americans eat. I put one of those.
Oh, you do the Tide Pods.
Just a scoop. I don't use powder, I use liquid.
Nice.
From a refill shop.
Well
Early
done.
on message.
Very well
just
done.
just a cup of that. Not like a lid.
Good, but I'm afraid it's not quite as good as the old reusable egg full of dry granules that I use.
Oh,
I've got one of those.
You do have to fly down to the Antarctic to get the egg, don't you?
That's why I've lost all these teeth, these front teeth of mine.
Is that right? You wash with a reusable egg?
There's a little plastic egg which is full of dry granules, and they last about 100 washes or something. And you
That's
just
so
replace those dry
I
granules.
wondered why you smelt so bad.
No, it works. It's really
Does
good.
it?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I've never
Well,
heard
this is
that.
that's a much better public service announcement than mine, which is if you're just using normal washing powder, you should never need to use more than really a tablespoon, which is much, much less
that
than you're
right?
probably using. This
Yeah.
was a New York Times expose, and it's really bad to overuse it because it makes your clothes go all crunchy.
Can I ask, Anna,
Yeah.
as someone who has a toddler who's currently potty training, and so I often have urine and feces stains on my clothing, is it different for me?
It says for extremely heavy loads, you might want 2 tablespoons, but you're never going to need more than that.
Okay, thank you.
And they're lying to you, the companies, with their cups on the lids,
yes,
because
exactly.
they just
and
want
they
you to
give you
get
a little
through it.
scoop, don't they?
Huh.
Oh, it's in their interest.
Yeah. There you
Big
go.
course.
Blown
Big
wide open.
powder.
But because I've always thought the whole thing's a scam, and what I've always thought is the whole the washing clothes thing, it's a scam. The thing I've always thought is the drawer thing, got to be a scam. So I've always put everything in the drum.
Yeah, I do that as well.
Well, what I've
Sure.
realised, if you use fabric softener, if you put that in the drum, which I always have done,
Oh.
it's completely pointless.
Oh,
And it's
really?
because it's to do with the charging of it. So fabric softener is partly there to stop your static clothes sticking together. And it does that by being positively charged so that the negatively charged clothes sort of bind with it and become neutral neutralized.
Didn't
So
know
it's
that.
there you go. That's kind of what it does. But it has the opposite charge to your washing powder. So if you put them in at the same time in the drum, they cancel each other out and it doesn't do any good.
Huh.
So if you are like me and you're just tipping your fabric softener in the drum,
Don't do that.
stop it.
Right.
And stop using all of it and be more ethical like these guys.
Get the egg. Get the plastic. I swear, get the egg and the granules.
Get the giant penguin egg,
Yeah.
shove it in the washing machine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Can I just tell you one wedding present thing? So it's based on a fact I discovered, which is that in 2015, Cristiano Ronaldo bought his agent, George Mendes, and his wife, Sandra, Greek island as a present. So they're best friends. I think he was best man at his wedding or vice versa. So they're very close. How sweet. Bought him a Greek island. And I was just like, how do you buy someone a Greek island? And do you know there's a website called privateislandsonline.com, which just has loads of islands for sale. Yeah. And this, when Greece went through the credit crunch, I didn't realise, but lots of economists advised, and eventually they went with it, advised that they put up a bunch of their islands for sale to make back some of the money.
I have been on this website, I think.
Have you got an island?
No, I think like if memory serves, you go on and it's like some of them are like not beyond the realms of possibility of someone like me could buy,
Exactly.
but it's always like a tiny island in a loch in the northernmost part of Scotland, and it says no electricity, no water, no ability to get to the island.
Well, you know, you'd be living a little bit off grid, yes, but I still think the cheapest Greek one I found was $5 million US. So if
Okay.
you know,
If we all club together,
If those bastards in Leamington Spa actually chipped in and dug deep,
maybe I don't know what the mortgage offers are on this. It's Strogilo Island or Strogilo Island. It's got beaches around the edge.
okay, hear me out.
Yeah.
No such thing as a fish island. Everyone who's listening
yeah.
chips in a bit,
Go
and
on.
everyone gets to go there.
Okay, lovely. I love it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
We can get $5 million. It's 54 acres, so we could all fit.
Is anything on it?
Some trees.
Nice.
It's very green, it's very verdant.
Sounds lovely.
Oh, and it's got power in some. I mean,
A
there's no
power
one living
station.
on it.
There is a nuclear power station in the middle, and it had a little hiccup a few years ago, but honestly, it's fine.
It's fine. It's fine.
Anyway, just something to bear in mind.
Wow.
I think.
Yeah, get that Kickstarter going.
Yeah, I think I will.
Get on an island. Lovely.
Could I do animal gifts?
Oh, yeah.
Wedding gifts. Can we do this quickly? Technically known as nuptial gifts, and there are lots of animals that give each other presents before mating. Did you know about this?
Oh.
So
saucy.
it's usually the males, but occasionally it's females that offer something. And it's usually food. But the really cool one I found was the nursery web spider. So the males approach the female and give her a gift of usually an insect, and he wraps them up in silk. And the females prefer the wrapped ones. They like the white, shiny, wrapped up presents.
Yeah.
But he'll give her the present and she will open it and start eating it. And meanwhile, he's getting busy with what he needs to do. So they start mating while she's opening her present.
right.
Decorous
Right
to
there.
put. Yep. Okay.
And generally...
Can you just wait until I? You just wait.
No. That's not, it's sort of the whole point. And if she can...
At least sing happy birthday.
No, he's mating while she's.
So she's opening the present.
Gosh.
But basically, because it's wrapped up, he can cheat and they don't always put something inside.
No way.
That's so funny. It's like Deal or No Deal.
So that's what.
So basically, some of them are like, well, I'll just put this old piece of shit in here. Like, no one's going to know until
That's
she's
so
opened it because it
funny.
takes a bit of time. And if she opens it, she's like, what is the... Okay, and then basically...
Too late, I've done it now.
So then she'll be like, no, off you get, we're going now. But the male, they also do a thing where... So this is from the paper, actually. There's a study of this, and I just thought this is a lovely sentence. However, if the female moves and attempts to terminate copulation, the male may perform thanatosis, which is death feigning behaviour. He stretches out his legs, which is unique to this species. The male then ends the insertion and grasps the gift with his chelicerae, which are his like mouth parts. And then the female moves away while holding on to the gift, and the male is dragged along behind the female until eventually she'll give up, and then he revives and resumes mating.
Wait,
So-
okay, I was going to ask
Oh.
what his end game is here, because I thought he was just trying to get the present back.
Yeah, me too, to re-gift it.
Well, I don't think we really know. I mean, his aim game is to basically try and make them as long as possible, because you do,
Right.
like, the longer they go, the more chance they have of fertilizing. And so basically breaking, like, giving her a crap present is not a great idea, because she will be like, no, I'm going to stop now because there's nothing in here. And the better the present you get, the more time. But it seems that sometimes they just don't have anything, or they're really hungry and they eat the gift first. So they take the insect, they eat
I've done
it.
that.
Honestly, I did buy you a bottle of wine, but it was a long train journey.
Anyway, here's the
James.
bottle.
Exactly.
Anna, stop mating with me.
And you've never invited me back.
Hannah feigning death, punching the wine bottle in her mouth.
Okay, it's time for our final fact, and that is James.
Okay, my fact this week is that hermit crabs are facing a housing crisis.
Join the club.
Oh, satire bell, everyone! Ding, ding, ding!
What do you mean?
I think it's relatively self-explanatory in that hermit crabs, as you might know, don't have their own shell, so they go and find a new shell, and usually it's one that's discarded. But it turns out that there aren't as many shells as there used to be. There's various different reasons. One reason is because gastropods, shell creatures, are shrinking. The populations are shrinking. But the papers basically analysed photographs of crabs online. And
Social
found,
media pictures of hermit crabs.
Pretty
that
much, yeah.
popular,
They basically went
hashtag.
onto Instagram and
Yeah.
looked for hermit crabs and found loads of pictures of them using bottle caps, soda cans, Lego
The really
bricks.
scary bit is the broken end of a light bulb. So they're like the
Yeah.
metal bit that you screw in.
Yeah.
Oh.
They use that.
Yeah.
There's quite a few pictures of hermit crabs. You know.
And
I
this-
guess
this
those
is-
are very durable in the ocean, I suppose.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they just last a long
Yeah.
time, don't they?
And I think that's one of the other reasons they're doing it, just because it's what's there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was another study in 2019 that found that 500,000 hermit crabs are dying every year after getting stuck inside bottles and things like that. So it's bad news for hermit crabs.
Rough.
It is. I mean, it's kind of mad. Apparently, as well, this plastic starts to smell like dead crabs, and that's one reason why they come towards them. So there's a stuff called dimethyl sulfide, which is this molecule that does all sorts of important things like make clouds, and it comes off plankton in the ocean. But it's the smell of a rotting crab. And but it sticks to the outside of plastic stuff, plastic pollution in the ocean. So one reason possibly why these crabs are going for the Coke bottle lids and yogurt pots is because they think it smells like a dead crab, and therefore it's a shell that's just been left behind by another crab.
Because you would use that naturally.
Yeah, exactly. These hermit crabs will use whatever they can find. So in Madagascar, there was a beach where there's a big cliff full of fossil shells, so really old shells, and the crabs will wait at the bottom of the cliff waiting for the fossils to drop out, and then they will use those as their home.
That's so cool. That's
So
like
it-
buying like a period property, isn't it? Like a listed building.
They're not allowed to decorate though.
Yeah, no,
extensions.
they're
That's
protected.
amazing.
That is
So they will use
incredible.
all sorts of things.
It's really interesting what you said about how they'll go towards the smell of a dead crab, because obviously in nature that's very unusual, isn't it? Like usually if a member of your species has died, you would usually give that a bit of a wide berth. wouldn't
Yeah,
you?
unless you want to eat it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, which is what they do, I think, as well, right?
which they might do. But yeah, you're right. It's not a good smell. Like rotting carrion is not.
Yeah. So what happens is that sometimes they'll climb into a bottle, and because the bottle's smooth, they can't get out, and so they'll die. And then the smell of the dead crab comes
Right.
out, and then the next crab goes, "Oh, great!" Dead crab goes into the bottle, and then they get stuck.
Oh no, it's like a horror film, and then the next crab goes to find
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
dead crab.
And then you've
I'm
got a
afraid
bottle
so.
full of dead crabs. Oh, God. And another kind of crazy thing about this is that maybe it's actually kind of makes sense from the crab's point of view, because if there's a ton of plastic around
Yeah.
and you want to hide, then you hide inside the plastic. And then
That's
you might,
true.
and then predators might also not really have figured out that there might be crabs inside of yogurt pots, and so they
Yeah,
haven't
yeah.
kind of learned yet to go looking. So it could be actually an advantage for the crabs, and they're also lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As a
little
shell.
petit faloo. They take almost no energy
Yeah,
to
yeah.
pick up.
They are really clever. The sort of the way they do it. So they sometimes evict each other. So
Oh, yeah.
if you have outgrown your shell, and you spot a hermit crab with a shell that would be perfect for your current size, they go over and bang on the shell with their claws.
They do, and before the fight breaks out, they'll show each other their claws, because if you've got the bigger claws, then generally you're the one who wins. So they try not to have a fight.
Oh, okay.
They'll be like, look, I'm this big, and the other one they'll compare claw size, and that can deflect fights.
That would be good. You know, in boxing at the start, before the
Yeah.
boxing fight, they always come up to each other and sort of like stand head to head and sort of talk to each other. It'd be good if every time one of them just went, oh no, I'm going to lose this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're
Back
way
off.
bigger than me.
Is that the weigh-in, James?
Yeah.
Are they actually weighed at that point?
Yes, they are. Because in most weights, there's a maximum weight you can be, and they try and get as
Right.
close to that as possible.
And are they both, I've always wondered this about boxing, are they both standing on the same set of scales? Because they're standing right facing each other and looking at each other. I always wonder if there's one big set of scales in the middle that they both have to get on.
As in, like one of those balance scales that goes up and down.
Yeah.
No, it's one set of scales and they take turns.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yeah.
You've got to use the same set.
Oh, sure. Yeah. But it would be nice if there was a joint set and they could both use it at the same time. And if it goes over the weight.
Just a seesaw.
Exactly.
And it has to be exactly balanced.
Yeah.
And it would be it'd be nicer if in the middle of the boxing ring was a seesaw, and whoever wins the seesaw.
How do you win at
Did I
seesaw?
even? Yeah.
I was a very competitive child. Absolutely crushed them on the little springy dogs at the park today. Hermit crabs.
Hermit crabs.
Yeah.
They do actually decorate their homes quite well, and we've talked about the way they move house, but when they're living in their house, they do various things. The anemone hermit crab gets anemones and sticks them to its shell, and I think it's because they've got stinging tentacles that affect other passers-by, and so it's a little bit of protection. The anemone gets some food, but when they move shells, they do then take all the furniture with them. The flat doesn't come furnished, and so I think they spend ages, is this right? They spend ages prizing off the anemones.
Yeah. There's a species of deep sea anemone that was discovered just last year, and they got a couple into the aquarium, and this was scientists in Japan. And it spent 2 days trying to move the anemone.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like pinching it and pulling it and like just generally trying to get it to let go. And then you've got to persuade it to cling on to the new one as well.
Oh my God.
It just
Yeah.
doesn't want to move.
Yeah, the anemone, I don't know if it knows. It's basically just, I don't know.
It
But it's
just
just not
clings- it just
cooperating.
clings on, right.
It just clings on. But the crab is like, well, they might not get another anemone, and they're in short supply, so you have to bring them with you.
Wow.
Great.
So
yeah,
funny.
It's like
it's
the
really
worst
amazing.
blue tack ever when you're moving out of a house. Scraping
2 days.
away.
Yeah.
Why did I put that poster up?
Have you heard of Aki Inomata? She's a Japanese artist.
I don't think so.
She does collaborations with animals. And one of the animals that she's done an art project with is a hermit crab.
Okay.
So she's 3D printed miniature cities.
Oh,
I've
And
seen
and she puts the
these.
miniature city sort of model she's built on top of a shell. And then lets the
Yeah.
hermit crab move
That's
into
so
that.
nice.
It is cool. I mean,
Really?
I guess it's also not a natural shell, which would be the best thing. But it's an interesting,
Yeah.
you know.
They will move into anything. Like you give them, you
Yeah.
can make them little Lego homes. They'll try that.
And I looked a bit more into her work. Inomata, she's done another project which is called I Wear the Dog's Hair and the Dog Wears My Hair.
okay.
And she and her dog wore capes made from each other's hair.
Okay.
And it looks a lot nicer than you would think it would look.
When you say collaboration, to me,
It was the dog's idea.
She said, I collected the hair of a dog called Cielo and my own hair over a number of years and then made clothes out of my hair for the dog and the dog's hair for myself so we could exchange coats. The two species, human beings and dogs, have developed together over the ages. This work examines the relationship between a human and her pet.
okay.
What kind of dog was it? I just want to know what kind of patterning
It's
it
a
had.
small dog.
Oh wow.
Was
Oh.
it spotty or stripy or?
Just brown, I think.
I'm just wondering if it's a small dog, what kind of outfit you can make, really.
It's wearing quite a natty little waistcoat. It looks good.
Nice.
And she's wearing a kind of cool sleeveless jacket thing.
So the dog's waistcoat is made out of her hair.
That's right.
So why don't we make more clothes out of human hair?
Yeah, Andy.
That's a good question.
Oh, I don't know.
Let's do it.
Well, one, creepy, I would say.
And yeah, but I mean, you get a lot of. I mean, I guess they use when you get your hair cut, like if it's good hair, they'll use it for making wigs. So
Yeah,
that's
you can make
important.
wigs.
That's
They
good.
will.
That's true.
So maybe we do that instead. I don't know. Just wondered.
Probably. I mean, this woman's a very good artist, it sounds like. And probably most people who try to make clothes out of human hair would look like shit.
Yeah, and also
Yeah.
just think of all the head and shoulders you have to put in the washing machine.
Do you guys know about... I really love historical manias, and I think we often cover them on the show, and I don't think we've talked about conchylomania or conchylomania.
Ooh, yeah.
In the 18th century, people just got really obsessed with collecting shells, didn't they?
They really did.
And it sounds like a really fun time to be alive. And the...
Cons, you'll die at 40. Pros,
Lovely shell collection.
got some nice shells.
Yeah.
Worth it. So I suppose, like a lot of these manias, it's a time when people in the Western world or in Europe are exploring more, so they're finding more exciting shells around the world. The most valued was this one called Glory of the Sea. Have you seen a Glory of the Sea shell?
Yes.
They're not that impressive, are they?
Well, no, you're not. You're right. I've seen one that was from that time, and it was collected by Victorian collectors in the Natural History Museum.
Oh, cool.
On the back, and but yeah, it's because no one had one, and so therefore, the few that existed. Is that the one where there's a story about someone buying another one? He had one already, bought another one at auction, and then immediately smashed it to pieces
In order to up the value of the first
I don't,
one.
and that might
heard
just
that
be
story.
apocryphal. I don't know if it's true, but it's that kind of level of
It was that
mania.
vibe.
Yeah.
There's definitely one that sold for 3 times more than a Vermeer painting at the same auction. And then there was this awful moment where we slightly got over the shell collecting obsession by the 20th century, but they were still really valuable. And I think in 1966, there were only 41 known specimens in the world.
Wow.
And then in 1969, we just found this habitat in New Guinea where they all live. And now there are tons of them.
Scuba divers found them, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
And there's probably not so many left for hermit crabs now.
No, that's true.
Actually, I don't know if they're good for hermit crabs. They've got quite a small opening.
They are very petite. It would have to.
Yeah.
It's at the very lower end of the housing market, I
Right.
think.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
First
shell.
time.
Starter, yeah.
Yeah.
You've written a whole book about shells, haven't you?
I have.
Spirals in Time.
That's correct.
Such a great
yes.
title.
Thank you.
Can I ask you, Helen, about Periostracum? I might be saying it wrong.
I say periostracum, but I'm making that up
You're an
as
actual
well.
expert in this field, so I'm going to go with what you're saying. Is it true that shells, this is like a skin?
Yes. Yeah.
Shells have skin
Some
in life?
do, yeah. So it's like a hairy layer that grows on the outside. I think it's like probably camouflage, probably some sort of protective thing that makes them look less like a shell and more like a bit of weedy rock.
Just imagine, all the shells that we see, like lots of them, will have had skin. That's weird, isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't that weird? I find it a bit weird.
It's quite weird, yeah. And then things like cowries, which are really shiny. Have you seen like big, lovely, shiny cowrie shells? The reason they're shiny is because part of their body called the mantle, which is like the pink bit on a mussel when you eat mussels, that's the mantle. Anyway, it folds over the outside when they're alive, so they cover themselves in like a part of their body, which means they stay nice and shiny and they don't have like stuff growing on them. That's why they are so like porcelain-y, kind of sort of shiny, glassy.
Is it porcellana is the Italian for cowrie shell, I think.
Is it?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
think
There you
so.
go. Yeah. So that's why they.
I think
so
porcelain
nice
was
and
named
shiny.
after the cowrie shell, I think.
Ooh, that's cool.
And the cowrie shell was named porcellana because it reminded people of a pig's vagina.
Yeah, cowries have got a lot
No.
of that sort of stuff
think
going
so.
on.
You can
Oh,
see
it's-
that when you
Yeah.
picture a cowrie shell. I mean, yeah, I can see it.
First thing that springs to mind.
If you've only ever seen a cowrie shell or a pig's vagina, basically you've seen them both
I think that's correct. Yeah, I would say.
for people at home.
Is it true, Helen, that we don't really know how shells form when animals grow their own shells? Like the process of biomineralization?
Yeah, true. I mean,
it's a bit of a mystery.
It is still a bit of a mystery because it's one of those things that takes a very long time. I think there's a lot going on. There's like a protein scaffold that gets laid down first, I think, and then the calcium carbonate, which is the hard stuff, gets laid down in that. And it's all at the outer edge of it.
They harvest the calcium ions and carbonate ions from seawater
Yeah.
and then combine the two of them together and they make crystals of calcium carbonate, which then go on this scaffold.
Right.
It sounds like we do know how it's made.
Yeah.
Okay, but
I mean, that's broad brush.
we know what happens, but
How?
and also why.
Exactly. And then it can be.
But I just think that's insane that they can harvest.
But they don't
ions
know
and
that they're
charge-
doing it.
But
It's
that
not like they're
doesn't make
chemists.
it doesn't make it less
Yeah.
impressive. Well, it does make it a bit less impressive, but I do think it's still it's just amazing.
It's really cool.
The world's most exclusive textile is made from a bivalve. And I'd never heard of this. Have you seen this? It's made from the pen shell.
So a bivalve is like a mussel, right? Or a
Yeah, a thing with two
snappy
shells.
shell
The snappy
guy.
shells.
Yeah.
A Pac-Man.
Yeah.
There are only 60 items known to be made of this special silk from this special pen shell. And so you've seen one of these things. And basically, they're huge, aren't they? The shells, they're like a metre tall.
Yeah, I mean, they used to be. Now they're not. They're doing quite badly now, and there's not as big. But yeah, it's basically like a beard. Oh, like when you have mussels, if you eat moule marinière and you pull off the mossy, beardy bits. The same stuff.
The threads.
Yes. Exactly.
And they use this hair to embed themselves in the seabed, right?
Exactly.
Little roots.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you make this amazing silk out of it.
Yeah, you go through it goes through stages of processing. I went to Sardinia, which is really where the only people left who do it.
Yes.
And
in fact, I think there's one woman left, I read. And did you meet one of them?
I met that one woman.
Chiara Vigo.
Yes.
Oh, wow, you've got opinions on Chiara Vigo.
I don't know if I should be mean. No, I'm not going to be mean, but she claims to be the last living mistress of sea silk, as it's called. But I met several other people who do it. And
This is explosive news to me and probably no one else who's listening.
No, and it's all in the book. It's in Spirals in Time. I talk about it. I met her and she's kind of all like very woo-woo about it. And you go into her little workshop and she does all this kind of, and here it is. And I do all these things. But then, I met 2 other women who've learnt it from there because it's like, it's handed. No one does it because you're not allowed to harvest these things anymore. Apart from the fact they're not doing very well because they've just been wiped out by a disease. Pen shells are now protected. So you can't go and take one to get there.
Yeah.
So did you call the police on this one?
Well, no, because she claims that she can sustainably harvest them, but no one's allowed to watch her do it. That was the part where I was like, okay.
Yes, because she says she doesn't harm the shells.
Yes,
no
exactly.
Shells
She's
are
like,
harmed
no,
in
they're fine. They grow back. And I'm like, they do grow back, but I don't know how fast and if it's fast enough. And she doesn't let anyone watch her while she's doing it.
How interesting.
I will keep the pig alive while I make this bacon sandwich, but I must do it in a closed room and you can't comment.
You might hear some squealing. That's me. I just love bacon so much.
Okay, that's it. That's all of our facts. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And if you want to get in touch with any of us, you can find these guys on some of their social medias. Andy, you're on
Twitter at Andrew Hunter M.
James?
My Instagram is no such thing as James Harkin.
Helen, do you have any online
I do. Twitter is Helen Scales and Insta it's Dr. Helen Scales because someone already had Helen Scales.
Dr. Helen Scales on Instagram. Or you can email podcast@qi.com, or you can go to our Twitter account at no such thing, or Instagram at no such thing as a fish, or go to our website no such thing as a fish.com, where you'll find links to our brand new tour, which is selling out fast. So please get there because we have so much fun. We're going around the UK, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand. Do come see us in any of those places. Way more important than that is please buy all of Helen's books. They're amazing, but definitely buy the latest book, which is
What the Wild Sea Can Be.
It's
The Future of the World
such a
Ocean.
romantic title.
Do you like
I love it. Yeah.
I came up with it first. Normally the title comes last. Spirals in Time was particularly painful. That was last minute. But this one I came up first. So yeah.
And
What the Wild Sea Can Be.
it has optimism in it, doesn't it?
Definitely. Yeah, that's kind of the point. It
Yes.
was like, let's not give up. And there's lots of things that's hopeful. And hopefully there's some fun things in there too.
So do that and come back again next week to catch us again. We will see you then. Goodbye.
I'd never heard of that egg. I gotta look it up when I get home.
Fucking good.
Yeah,
It's
that's really good.
like it genuinely works.
At what temperature as well? Because that's the other thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
know.
150 Celsius
Okay.
for 3 hours.
Perfectly normal. Fine. Good. Just checking.